So we are reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 3, text 42. Indriyani parani ahur indrebhya param manaha manasastu parabuddhi yobuddhe paratastu saha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The working senses are superior to dull matter. The mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind, and he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So here Krishna is giving that hierarchy to Arjuna, that there's dull matter. Everything here is made of dull matter in the material world, and of course the senses also. The senses are also material. But earth, water, air, ether, fire, that's called dull matter. And then our body is a combination of this, plus the working senses. We have the working senses like the hands, the legs, that's the senses, but it's material. And then, so Krishna is saying the senses are higher than matter, dull matter. And then mind is higher than the senses. So mind is also material. And the mind is like the king of the senses. That's how the senses enjoy. The mind says, okay, now I'm happy, now I'm not. That's how the senses also feel happy. Then intelligence is still higher than the mind. So we are supposed to control the mind by our intelligence. And the soul, the intelligence is sitting very near to the soul. And so the intelligence is supposed to receive the direction from the soul proper. That's what's the hierarchy actually. But what happens is we don't control our senses. So what happens, the senses, they're compared to the horses. 5 horses, 5 senses. Eyes want to see something, tongue wants to eat or taste something or speak something. Then the nose wants to smell something, the ears want to hear something else. So imagine all these the senses are driving us in all different directions, and the mind is going everywhere. The mind is being pulled by these senses in different directions. So how are we going to have any sort of equilibrium or peace? Because the mind is just going in all the directions. Whereas we are supposed to control the senses with our mind and control our mind with our intelligence. So the senses are different outlets for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within the body, but it is given vent through the senses. We heard last week, Krishna says that where is this lust situated? He said it's situated in the senses, it's in the mind, it's also in the intelligence. That's where lust is. What is lust? It's a desire to enjoy separate from Krishna. And that is what our conditioned life is all about. We are in this material world because we have a desire to enjoy separate from Krishna. Therefore, the senses are superior to the body as a whole. These outlets are not in use when there is superior consciousness or Krishna consciousness. So senses are superior to the body as a whole, means the body is made up of earth, water, air, fire. So the senses are superior to that, to the dull matter. Then when the senses, we can engage them in Krishna consciousness. When the eyes we use for seeing the deity of Krishna, for reading, like how we are reading now Bhagavad Gita as it is, the ears to hear the transcendental message, the tongue to speak about Krishna conscious message, then the senses are subdued. Then the mind will also be subdued because the senses are properly engaged. In Krishna consciousness, the soul makes direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the hierarchy of bodily functions, as described here, ultimately ends in the Supreme Soul. So when we are engaged in bhakti, what happens? We are connecting to Krishna. The pastimes of Krishna, that's Krishna. The form of Krishna is Krishna. When we are hearing about Krishna, that's Krishna. So then we are associating with Krishna, and nothing is above that. Bodily action means the functions of the senses, and stopping the senses means stopping all bodily actions. But since the mind is active, then even though the body may be silent and at rest, the mind will act as it does during dreaming. So for example, we may artificially say, I'm not going to speak anything. I'm not going to speak anything for 10 days. But what about the mind? We can't shut the mind. Or I say artificially, I'm going to close my eyes. I'll put a blindfold for myself, so I won't see anything. But what about the mind? The mind will still keep me going crazy. The mind cannot be silent. It's always active. But above the mind is the determination of the intelligence. And above the intelligence is the soul proper. So if therefore the soul is directly engaged with the Supreme, naturally all other subordinates, namely the intelligence, mind, and senses, will be automatically engaged. So we are the soul. We are thinking we are the body, but we are not the body. We are the soul. And we have a relationship with the Supreme Lord. We have an eternal relationship with God, a loving relationship. And we are his eternal servants. So we are meant to engage in his service. You're meant to act in that capacity. So once we start acting in that capacity, then what happens? The intelligence, the mind, the senses, everything is at peace. Because then we are sitting in our natural position. Our natural position is that we are servants of Krishna. And what's the unnatural position? Is that we think, I am God myself. Why shall I serve anyone else? And because we are in this artificial, unnatural position, then we are not at peace. We are not at peace. We think by sense enjoyment we are going to get peaceful, but no. We see that we get more and more anxiety. We are trying to be someone we are not. And that is what is the struggle. That is what causes us the distress. So in the Katha Upanishad, there is a similar passage in which it is said that the objects of sense gratification are superior to the senses. So the objects of sense gratification are superior to the senses. So for example, the sense eyes and the object of sense gratification will be a form to see something. So that form is superior then to the eyes. So we are seeing the hierarchy of these material elements. All these are material elements. It's not transcendental. So for example, taste will be superior to the tongue then. And mind is superior to the sense objects. So superior than the form, the taste, the touch, the sound is the mind. If therefore the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly, then there is no chance that the senses will become engaged in other ways. So what we have to do, control the mind. With the mind, we engage the mind in the service of the Lord. Then we say, no, with the eyes, I must see the deity of the Lord. I must read Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. When I'm seeing everything, let me try to connect it some way or the other to the Lord. Krishna says that the trees, then the plants, they are the hairs of his body, of the universal form. And the clouds in the sky, they are the hairs on his head. And then the rivers are his veins. So like that, when we are seeing outside, we can connect everything to Krishna. He says, I'm the sound and ether. So any sound we hear is actually Krishna. This is what Bhagavad Gita is telling us, that with the mind, we worship Krishna. Then everything else will be okay. The senses also will be controlled. This mental attitude has already been explained. Param drishtva nivartate. If the mind is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no chance of its being engaged in the lower propensities. So what happens is, Krishna says that by the contemplation, I think he says it later, that how does it happen? When we continuously think of something, We think, for example, I continuously think, oh, I want to eat this cake. I want to eat it. Oh, I'll feel so nice if I eat it. When it comes to the feeling part, then we want to have it. Then we want to have it. But it all begins in the mind. Or we see something. When I'm seeing a cake, for example, and so I say, looks so good. It'll be nice to have it. And then in the mind, I say, oh, I'll feel so happy if I have it. Then I feel, oh, then now I must have it. That's how it goes. So we have to control. That's why Krishna says that you control what you're seeing. So if therefore the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly, then there is no chance that the senses will become engaged in other ways. So if the mind is made up, no, I can't eat the cake that has egg in it. Rather, I'm going to go home, bake a vegetarian cake for Krishna, and then I will eat it. Or let me get another vegetarian cake. I can't wait for so long. Let me choose if there is a eggless option, and then I will offer it to Krishna, Sri Vishnu it, and then have it. At least in some way, I'm connecting it to Krishna, that, oh, I really want to have it. So let me try to find an eggless option, a vegetarian option, and I Sri Vishnu it, and then I have it. So this mental attitude has already been explained. Param Disra Nivartate. If the mind is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no chance of its being engaged in the lower propensities. In the Katha Upanishad, the soul has been described as Mahan, the great. Therefore, the soul is above all, namely the sense objects, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. Therefore, directly understanding the constitutional position of the soul is the solution of the whole problem. Right now, what we are thinking is that I am this body, and I need to make this body as comfortable as possible, and that is my happiness. So the whole material life is about this, that I am this body. I want to make this body as comfortable as I can. I want to, whoever is connected to this body, I want to make them as comfortable as possible. And then this is my happiness. And this is conditioned life. What is our true position, our constitutional position? I am an eternal servant of God. And my natural position is to engage in his service. This body is given to me by Krishna. The senses belong to Krishna. So I need to engage in his service. And when I engage them in his service, I automatically will become happy. So we are searching for happiness. There's no way that we can live without happiness. We all want to be happy because that's the nature of the soul, to be happy. But right now, because we are thinking we are the body, we are thinking we'll be happy if we make the body comfortable. Whereas in truth, we are the soul. And the only way we can truly be happy is when we are situated in our original position as the soul in a loving relationship with Krishna. So with intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul and then engage the mind, always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. A neophyte spiritualist is generally advised to keep aloof from the objects of the senses. But aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by use of intelligence. If by intelligence one engages one's mind in Krishna consciousness, by complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then automatically the mind becomes stronger. And even though the senses are very strong, like serpents, they will be no more effective than serpents with broken fangs. But even though the soul is the master of intelligence and mind, and the senses also, still, unless it is strengthened by association with Krishna and Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down due to the agitated mind. So one may try to artificially control the mind and senses without engaging it in Krishna's service. We may artificially try to say, I'm detached from this world. I'm not going to get attached to anything. I'm going to control my mind. I'm going to limit my desires to the bare minimum. I'm going to say no to everything. But what will happen? The senses are very strong, like serpents. They will come. They will act in one way or the other. at some point of the other. The only way we can control the senses and the mind is when we connect it to Krishna, when we use them in the service of Krishna, because that's the natural position, and that's the truth. By artificial things, we just create a lot of problems for ourselves. Like, for example, we take a fish out of water and then we say, oh, see, the fish is suffering. Now let me put it in a 5-star hotel, and then let me maybe give it a nice massage, and maybe let me arrange nice jazz music so the fish can relax. Or maybe the air conditioning is not so proper. Let me adjust the air conditioning. Maybe then the fish won't suffer. But what we have to do, the fish doesn't need the 5-star, doesn't need the massage, doesn't need the jazz. We might throw in some manicure, pedicure or something also in there. But the fish doesn't need all that. What does the fish need? It just needs to go back in the water. And that's our constitutional position, that we have to connect ourselves again to Krishna. And that connection process, what is that? That is bhakti, by hearing and chanting. That's the only way we can be happy. We were just having our Bhakti Vaibhav class in which we are on the part 3rd canto, where Vidur puts a question to Maitreya Muni, that what is the way to true happiness? Everyone is searching for happiness. What is the way to truly be happy? So then the answer is given that the happiness, the idea of happiness in this material world, there is this idea of being happy in this material world. But actually, happiness in this material world is an illusion. It is an illusion. The more we're trying to go after it, the more we feel, oh, I'm not happy. It's like trying to find water in a desert. We can find water when we go to the reservoir of water. We go to a lake or a river or the ocean. That's where the water is. But we are trying to find water in a desert. So happiness can be found only in connection with Krishna, not otherwise. And so how do we experience that happiness at our level? So the teacher, he said that we should keep this mantra for ourselves and stick it somewhere where we could read it everywhere, that austerity for myself, facility for others. Austerity for myself, facility to others means that what facility do I have to give others? Give them Krishna. Somehow the other, give them the opportunity to hear and chant about Krishna. Somehow the other, give them Krishna by books or prasad or speaking to them or kirtan. And don't consider about our own happiness. And then in that giving, we will feel happiness. When we don't expect it, then in that giving, we will feel happiness. Otherwise, we are trying to find happiness by taking and taking in this material world, by trying to enjoy, or this one should serve me. He or she is not doing this, and that's why I'm not happy. If only he or she did this, or only if I could get this, I would be happy. So we are trying to find happiness by taking in the material world. But that's the reason we are not able to experience it. It's only when we learn to give Krishna to others without any expectation for ourselves, then we can truly be happy. And it made a lot of sense, what he was saying, without any expectation. So there's a question, or getting attached to all attractive, is it possible in this material world? You mean getting attached to Krishna? Krishna is the one who's all attractive. Is it possible in this material world? Yes, the more we hear and chant. That's why we are always advised to hear, chant, associate with the devotees. The more we hear and chant, the more we will get attached to Krishna, because then the more we will be situated in our original position. Originally, we are very attached to Krishna. But right now, it's just our consciousness has become covered. So the more we hear and chant, associate with devotees, that consciousness will get purified. The more it gets purified, the more we will get attached to Krishna. Is that okay? Hari. Thank you for your nice question. Are there any other questions or comments? Anything to share?
No, just that what you said towards the end, the more you put your senses, engage your senses in devotional life, in Krishna consciousness, the purer you get. That's the only way.
Yeah. Yeah,
because the mind really can play so many tricks, and it will show you illusions, and it can really take you to places. It's so difficult. But if you completely engage, not completely, but at least try, completely is impossible for us, but engage your senses as much as possible in devotional life, he just makes it possible. He just makes everything possible then.
Yeah, so true. We can just try, as you said, I mean, what other choice do we have? We just have to try it, and it works. That's the reason they're telling us.
It works. It works. Yeah, correct.
It works. It's only that we are not willing to try it,
Yeah, it's too much, attachment to mundane life.
Yeah, because so many lifetimes we have been thinking, oh, I'm going to be happy if I do this. Just let me be happy. And many times before we would think that doing the same things would make me happy,
Yeah.
That is the illusion, right? Oh, before these things would make me happy. So what's happening now? But because that's the illusion, that's so temporary, the happiness. It needs so much hard work. And each of us wants to be happy.
Yeah. And the distraction comes in different ways. It can come in way to attachment to family, to try and make them happy. These are all actually distractions. You can, of course, nobody's saying to ignore family or anybody, but do it in a Krishna conscious way. That is the best way to do it. Otherwise, you'll get entangled in everybody's problems.
Oh, yeah. When we artificially also try to give up, I'm not attached to my family anymore.
No,
but then that's also artificial,
Yeah,
you're so attached.
Yeah, you are. They're your children, they're your family. You are. It's normal.
Yeah, it's natural.
Yeah. It's natural. Yeah, absolutely. But when we keep him in the center, no, they have come to me. They are part and parcel of Krishna. I have to look after them as Krishna's children. Then you do it that way. Then it just works out better.
Yeah, not
way.
easy
Best
though.
you can.
It's not easy though.
Yeah,
it's so difficult. It's so difficult. I struggle with that so much personally also. Then again, I have to just keep reminding myself, keep fighting with myself about that. Yeah.
But at least then it's their desire, their journey. But at least we must do the best in that way, in a Krishna conscious way, and then that's it. Yeah, that's all we can do, anyways, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, so true.
Yeah,
that's so true.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for that. It's really nice. So reading on 43, Evam Buddhe Param Buddhva Samstabhyat Manam Atmana Jahi Shatrum Mahabaho Kama Rupam Durasadam. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So here Krishna is telling us practically what we have to do. He's saying knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence. So I have to keep reminding myself, oh, hey, I'm not my mind. I'm not the senses. I'm not the intelligence. I'm a soul. I'm an eternal servant of Krishna. Steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. This third chapter of Bhagavad Gita is conclusively directive to Krishna consciousness by knowing oneself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without considering impersonal voidness, the ultimate end. So we have to come to the point, knowing oneself. Know thyself, right? They say know thyself. So what? Knowing ourselves. So who are we actually? We are the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. We should not consider of the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, because that is not who we are. We are not void. We are not. We are individuals. We are persons. We have a personality. In the material existence of life, one is certainly influenced by propensities for lust and desire for dominating the resources of material nature. So that is our desire to enjoy here. I want to enjoy as much as I can. I want to be happy here in this material world. It's my right to be happy. Why shouldn't I be happy? What have I done wrong to be suffering? What did I do? But we don't realize that happiness in this world is an illusion. And desire for dominating the resources of material nature. That let me use everything so that I can be happy. Let me use everyone and everything so my desires can be fulfilled. Desire for overloading and for sense gratification is the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul. But by the strength of Krishna consciousness, one can control the material senses, the mind, and the intelligence. So what can we do? Hear and chant. Hear and chant so that our desires can be purified, so that we can be situated in our true position, our true situation. One may not give up work and prescribed duties all of a sudden, but by gradually developing Krishna consciousness, one can be situated in a transcendental position without being influenced by the material senses and the mind, by steady intelligence directed towards one's pure identity. So Krishna is not saying that, oh, whatever position you are in, whatever duties you have, don't do that, give up all work. No, do whatever prescribed duties you have to do, but develop Krishna consciousness, hear and chant. And then what will happen? By this, we will be situated in our transcendental position. We will come to the point, oh, I'm an eternal servant of Krishna. I'm not this body. Here, Krishna is saying that will happen. We just have to believe in him and do it. We can see to a certain degree how by hearing and chanting, our attachment to few things at least gets reduced a little bit, It doesn't mean that we are not yet attached. We are still, but it gets a little loosened. And we are trying to understand, oh yeah, really, I'm not the body, I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. If we can leave the body in that consciousness, I was hearing Prabhupada's one of this class. He said, if we can leave the body in the consciousness that I'm eternal servant of Krishna, then that's all that we need. So just by knowing, okay, I'm not this body, I'm eternal servant of Krishna, then we can go back to Krishna. So easy as that. By steady intelligence directed towards one's pure identity. That's our pure identity. But what's the difficult part is that we don't want to do it. We don't want to accept it. Like just now in our class, we were saying that when Kali asked Maharaj Parikshit, some place to stay, give me shelter in your kingdom. So Maharaj Parikshit smiled. He said, well, because let me give him shelter, because Kali Yuga, it's very easy to get Krishna Prema, very easy to get liberation. Just chant the holy name, So Parikshit Maharaj smiled that it's going to be so easy for people when Kali comes. They just have to chant and they can get the highest perfection, the highest bliss. And Kali also smiled at that time. And why does Kali smile at that time? Because he says, I'm not going to let people chant. That's what is our position. It is so easy, but we don't want to do it. Only thing we have to do is hear and chant. But we say, no, I don't want to do it. And so this is what it is. This is the sum total of this chapter. In the immature stage of material existence, philosophical speculations and artificial attempts to control the senses by the so-called practice of yogic postures can never help a man towards spiritual life. He must be trained in Krishna consciousness by higher intelligence. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 3rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Karma Yoga, or the discharge of one's prescribed duty in Krishna consciousness. So there is no way that just by cultivating knowledge, philosophical speculation, just by trying to speculate knowledge, we are thinking we are getting knowledge, but it's just mental speculation, or artificially trying to control the senses by some yogic postures. It's not going to get us out of this material world. It's not going to help us to situate in our true position, our original position. The only way is Krishna consciousness. That's the only way. So the only thing we have to do is hear and chant and hear and chant, and give this hearing and chanting to Krishna. Give this important message to Krishna, because everyone is suffering here in the material world. Everyone is suffering because we are all thinking we are the body and we can enjoy here in this material world. So we don't know that the true happiness is only when we connect to Krishna. Any questions or comments or anything to add?
No, nothing really. I think this is perfect.
Vishal, did you have any question? I'm not sure if he has a question or not. So I don't think so, probably not. Okay, let's see. No, okay. So we finished the 3rd chapter. I'm just thinking, shall we begin the 4th chapter or end here, and chant our round?
I think we can do that, because I think not everyone is there today. So I think for their benefit, we should.
Okay, so we'll stop here then. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for joining in. Being 1st of January, being a holiday.